Let's be sacred people in the world, not of the world, but be in the world. We don't need to change from, I lead worship and I get paid to lead worship at this church on Sundays, but this is what I really do. This is my real love. Well, just do both, but don't change. Like when I see Mavis Staples in front of the president or in front of anybody in the world, and she's always singing about Jesus, and she's so filled up with the joy of the Lord that nobody can deny it.
Yeah.
People's lives get shaken when they're around her because it's so authentic and real.
Why can't we just be the same person in both places?
Well, wouldn't that be great if God is just pulling us into that?
I think he is. The Ferment.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Ferment podcast, conversations about worship and transformation. Today's guest is Chris Lizotte. Chris is a worship leader and a songwriter from San Juan Capistrano, California. Best known for his songs Glory to the King, I Love Your Ways, and I Will Trust You.
Peace.
This episode is brought to you by Monk Drums. Monk Drums is a creative desert venture that strives to combine beauty and business as one heartbeat. Monk Drums' main focus is handcrafted wooden drums that allow us to love, assist, and serve all who accompany us on this path. Use the coupon code FERMENTPOD to get 5% off your Monk Drums order. Find them on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Monk Drums. And every Monday, look for hashtag Monk Drum Monday. Speaking from personal experience, Monk Drums are wonderfully crafted and they sound amazing. They blend the best traits of both the djembe and the cajon, and I found them to be incredibly versatile in both the live and studio environment. Check them out at monkdrums.com.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at worshipteam.com. Worshipteam.com comes preloaded with over 12,000 songs, with new songs being added all the time. Hillsong, Bethel, Vineyard, Six Steps, Jesus Culture, just to name a few. Service building with Worship Team is a snap, and all the songs are completely legal and licensed. You can also find them on social media, Facebook at worshipteam.com, Twitter at worshipteam, Instagram at worshipteam_WT. Visit them at worshipteam.com for a free trial today. Complete worship planning with thousands of songs, easy interface, mobile apps, and legal rights for your church. All you need in one place, worshipteam.com.
Man, hey Chris.
Hi.
Hey, I'm in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
What's up with the rain in California today?
Right. It's few and far between, but we appreciate it when it comes.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how do Californians feel about the rain like this?
It's, magical in a way because we just never get it.
Well, it certainly surprised me because I came from fairly cold Kentucky, and I was thinking, I'm going to come into Southern California.
Yeah, with your shorts on.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
No.
Hey, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while because I think you know this, but you're kind of a legend.
No.
That's how I feel anyway.
In my own mind.
That's right. I don't know. Maybe in my mind. But Chris, you occupy this really cool space of songwriter and artist and musician, and you've been able to occupy that space for a while. So I was hoping maybe we could just mine some of that, if that'd be cool.
Sure.
Yeah. Before we do that, though, could we do just like some origin story stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where are you from?
I'm from here. I grew up in Southern California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where at in Southern California?
I was born in Orange, just right up the road. And when I was 2, we moved to Laguna Beach. Then South Laguna, Laguna Niguel, my whole life. And now my wife and I and our 3 boys live in San Juan Capistrano.
Okay. So when you were growing up, was your family a family of faith?
Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like practicing Catholic?
Yeah, well, every Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you went to Mass.
We went to Mass, and I went to Catholic school 1st through 8th grade in Laguna Beach, and I was an altar boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was faith like for you?
It was my parents' faith, as it is when you're a kid, but I somehow feel like I had some reverence for God. I had nothing but a good experience in Catholic school, and to be honest, was probably pretty bored in Mass, but I can go to Mass today and enjoy it and appreciate it and love taking communion. And I like that I was baptized Catholic as a baby in a sense. So when I ever do go to a Mass,
you can take communion.
I can go take communion.
Yeah.
I probably would do it anyway, but.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in a family that's kind of like, we go to Mass on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
When did your faith become personal or kind of like become alive for you?
I think I was 15, maybe 16. My mom was searching. She was just searching. And my aunt had gotten saved. Was going to this little church in Dana Point. And my mom started going to church with her there. And at the time, my mom was like going to Mass and everything, but she was just kind of searching. She was like reading about reincarnation, all kinds of stuff. But this little church was like 25 people in the Dana Point Community Center, and they prayed for the sick. And I was born with jaundice, and I was born with one leg a lot shorter than the other. And I know we've heard a lot of legs growing stories, but I had no grid for healing at all. And this is a church, my aunt was it's a small church, so everyone knew each other. And Heidi Baker she was at that church too. And so my aunt and her were friends. And my mom said, hey, I think you should come and they pray for the sick. I want them to pray for your leg. Because at the time they were thinking about this surgery for me. That was really expensive and really painful and would take a year of a process. And so I went with her and the pastor after the message. He asked people if they need prayer. And the pastor came to me and he just said, your mom told me about you. Can we pray for you? And I said, okay. And he sat in a chair right like that and put my feet up and he just started praying and I just was looking at him and I felt my bones creaking. It was almost like you can hear it. It was the weirdest feeling. I can't forget the feeling. And I just started crying and my mom's crying and then could you see it grow? You could see it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he said, do you know Jesus? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, do you want to know Jesus? And I said, yeah, after that.
Yeah, how are you going to say no?
Yeah. So that was my born again experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your born again experience is miraculous in some ways. It's deeply connected to the miraculous.
It felt so much like love to me because, if you think about it, I had one of my good friends from youth group when we were like, I started going to Calvary Chapel youth group right after that. And we would go out Sunday nights and listen to John Wimber at Canyon High School. And we were all just going, Chuck Smith Jr. was our pastor. So we would go up with him. And a friend of mine was legally blind. He had Coke bottle glasses. During worship, he was completely healed. Right?
Just during worship, no one prayed for him?
No one even touched him. And I remember John Wimber had a word that somebody's right eye was completely healed. His right eye was completely blind. The left eye was legally blind. And John said somebody's left eye was completely healed. And my friend was so freaked out and then so afraid of being pointed out. And we were going, that's you, go up there. And he goes, no, it's my right eye. And John goes, oh, I'm sorry, it was your right eye. And and then afterwards, he still never raised his hand. He was just embarrassed. It was 3,000, I don't know how many people fit in that gym. It was packed.
Thousands.
A lot. But so afterwards, we went down to the front to try and find John. And where are these kids? I was probably 16, 17. And my friend was more bold than me. And we found John and we said, you have to hear what happened. My friend was healed during worship. Totally healed. He was totally blind. And John said, isn't God great? And he turned around and walked away. And that was it. And then we'd go every Sunday night. And so he never, the next Sunday didn't say, last week.
Where's the blind guy?
Yeah. Last week, our church was part of this great healing. He never said anything about it. And it was such a sweet thing to me because it reminded me of how in the Bible, Jesus would say, don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't I'm sorry, I went on this rabbit trail, but all that to say was that it made me just really believe that the main objective for Jesus is our heart.
Yeah.
that he'll heal someone out of such great compassion and love. But 4 years later, that friend of mine, he committed suicide. And so as sad as that is, I just feel like the story, in a sense, well, even the blind eye is going to turn to dust. It's a temporary fix.
That's right.
It's not an eternal thing, but our soul is eternal.
Yeah.
And so I love when I hear stories about healing when it's someone who doesn't even know who he is.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, to your point of even blind eyes eventually turn to dust. Poor Lazarus, he gets raised up and he dies again eventually, right? Isn't that part of the story?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the unspoken part. But you're right. God's kindness is for people's heart. Yeah. What a great story, though.
Yeah.
It's tremendous. Okay, so when you're there, is this when your heart is coming alive both to Jesus and to worship?
No.
Okay.
No, I grew up just a beach kid and playing volleyball and surfing, and I wasn't playing an instrument or anything. A friend of mine gave me a guitar. I took lessons from a friend's mom of piano when I was a little kid. But when I turned 18, me and 3 buddies moved to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and just went skiing for a year. And a friend of mine gave me a guitar to take with me. Hey, take this guitar. And so while I was out there, I just fiddled around the guitar. And then when I was out there, a buddy from back home said, "Hey, when you get back, we're starting a band." And I'm like, "All right." He goes, "What do you want to play?" And I go, "Well, I got a guitar." And it was an acoustic guitar. He goes, "Okay, well, you're playing guitar." And back then it was like in Southern California, there was this kind of like new wave of music from all these young kids were getting saved. And that's when I met Chris Wimber, and he had a band called the Lifesavers, and this all these like punk rock, ska, reggae influence, surf punk, kind of just bands like that. And we were all just doing this music, and we all sucked pretty bad. Some of us were better than others. I was horrible, but because it was so new, and churches were seeing such amazing fruit of all these kids wanting this alternative entertainment or whatever. It wasn't just entertainment. There was like a move of the Spirit. My wife's first boyfriend was this guy named Mike Knott, and he was the singer of the Lifesavers. And so like that guy alone, he has a sad story, but at the time, he was such an evangelist, and he barely knew the Bible, and he would just like, they'd play these songs. He was like the Christian Elvis, all the girls just loved him. And but they'd play 4 gigs in a week, and hundreds of kids were just getting saved. And, when Chris was part of that, and the guy would say, "Jesus is so rad. Do you want to know that you'll go to heaven tonight?" Some super not knowing it much at all what to say. And then all these kids would just get saved. It was like proof of God, proof of the Spirit moving. It wasn't any eloquent words that happened to.
There was not even a
this
theological understanding necessarily for what was going on, right? No, there was nothing super deep. Just God was working through someone.
Yeah, and it was really the beginning of Christian music. I mean, the Jesus movement was before that, but for all this like young bands that I got to be around, like the Altar Boys and the Lifesavers and Undercover and all these bands in my age group that we all looked up to. So my band called the Spiritones.
What kind of band were you?
We were like a ska band kind of.
Did you have a horn section?
No.
Okay.
We were like way not that sophisticated.
Okay.
And we were terrible. And so we would get to play these, like we played Calvary Costa Mesa, 3,000 people would show up because that's what everybody did on Saturday night.
What?
And they'd watch us, and they were so gracious and still clap after songs. And we were petrified. Chuck Sr. would say, "You guys don't bring any attention to yourselves, just get up there and play the songs, And so we were just, which was kind of strange, but that's just what it was.
Yeah.
He was an obviously amazing person, but
yeah. It was just the day.
It was the day.
Yeah, it was day.
Just, he was trying to be careful, like not let it get too crazy.
Yeah.
And
how old were you?
18, 19.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. When did you start writing songs, Chris?
Right around then, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty bad ones.
That's the way it goes.
Sure.
Yeah. So when you started playing in the Spiritones and you started writing some songs, were you writing for that band or were you writing for all kinds of stuff? Like for church?
No, just for that band. And even then, I wasn't the singer. So the singer was writing the lyrics and doing that. And so I was writing, maybe helping with chord progressions, but if I wrote songs, it would just be for me, and who knows what would happen with them. I don't know.
Yeah. When did you write your first song that was for church?
I don't know. I mean, after that, I got in another band, and we got, as people do, you get a little better. And me and 4 of my childhood friends moved to LA, and we just played bars and clubs, and we just were trying to get a record deal when that was a thing. And that's when I started writing songs, because that's when I started singing.
Yeah.
I started singing because the singer of the Spiritones got sick one night. We had a pizza parlor gig, and they're like, "You got to sing because we all can't sing at all, and then you can kind of sing." And so and then I got the bug. I'm like, "Oh man, this is awesome."
And you never looked back.
I never looked back.
Start another band.
Yeah. So then I got in another band called Labor of Love, and
What kind of band was Labor of Love?
we were like, REM, and we were like an alternative band.
Okay.
In the worst time in LA to be that kind of band.
Was this like the glam years?
Yeah, Poison, Guns N' Roses,
Okay,
all those.
Okay, so if you're playing in LA, are you running into those bands?
Yes.
Okay, tell me a story. Is there a story you can tell?
I have a lot of stories.
Oh man, tell me one about running into the glam.
Well, it was everywhere because back then there was no internet, so all the big hair bands would always be on Sunset Boulevard just handing out flyers for their gigs, and we'd be handing out our flyers, and it was just a joke because they would have an army of like girls helping them, and we were just like square peg round hole. But yeah, I went to this party at the Roxy. This band called Autograph had a record come out, and a friend of mine was friends with them. So I was invited to this. It was like the ultimate metal show, but it was their party for their band. So they got up and played some songs from their new record, and they had all their friends' bands come. So every band played 2 songs. So Autograph played 2 songs, and then they were like, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our friends Rat." And so Rat plays 2 songs. And then they go, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Wasp." And then Wasp plays 2 songs. And ladies and gentlemen, Motley Crue. And they play 2 songs. And then
You were at the epicenter of 80s glam metal.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And I didn't have the hair and all that stuff. And then the last band was Kiss.
Get out.
And this was at the Roxy, and it was like, I don't know, 400 people or something. So I actually even kind of liked it. I didn't want to admit it because I was like, whoa, this is kind of epic,
Yeah.
But anyways.
Okay, so is this, I'm just going to go out on a limb here. Is this one of the themes of your life? Like, there's something alternative about you?
Well,
In the era of big hair, you're playing alternative music?
I mean, I don't want to say that because I'm not that cool. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I was different because I was better than anybody. It's just where we came from, I think, coming from South Orange County, and a lot of the big hair bands were like kind of Midwest guys that moved out to LA. A lot of them were. And so we were just from South Orange County, where like in that surf culture, reggae was kind of like, when I was in high school, we would listen to Bob Marley and Led Zeppelin mixed together, and just kind of like,
that's
we
wild.
were just from different places.
Yeah.
And what they do is great for them. I didn't really I would have never wanted to wear the makeup and all that stuff anyway, so I'm glad I wasn't into that so much.
So you don't have, there's no pictures floating around of you in spandex?
No, there's some good pictures, sure.
Yeah,
but not spandex.
Okay.
No. I had pirate boots and stuff like that.
Did you have a pirate shirt?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I eventually need to see this photo.
Oh yeah. You won't.
Oh man.
No.
Okay, so if you're playing the 80s club scene in LA, when did you start writing like what we would consider to be like congregational worship music or songs that people would sing at church for Jesus?
Well, when I was living in LA, Chris Wimber, because we just had known each other from when we were kids, I was at their wedding, Chris and Debbie's wedding, and we just knew each other. He was just always a friend. So he would come up to LA and he would do sound for us sometimes and just volunteer to be around us. And he'd kind of like lovingly say, you know, when you get over yourself, come back to church, you know. And one of my best friends that I had moved to Colorado with when I was younger, he got cancer and passed away, and it just freaked me out. And it made me just want to go back home and get out of that scene. And so I started going to Anaheim Vineyard again. At that time, it was in a warehouse kind of by Angel Stadium, Cerritos Street or whatever. And Chris had just started this little label called New Breed, and this band, The Violet Burning, was on it. I quit my band and everything, and so he said, "We do a record with us." And so I was the second artist on Chris's little label. He did New Breed, but I was still just doing kind of like blues songs. But in the midst of that, Eddie Espinosa was one of the worship leaders, and he one day said, "I just felt like you're supposed to come play with me, so just strum along." So I'd be up there strumming along with Eddie's thing, and it was like he knew all these weird jazzy chords, and he'd play songs that had kind of weird chords that I had no business playing. So there'd be a lot of times where I'd strum and have the pick like an inch away from the strings, just because I didn't want to hit bad notes. But it was so sweet because he just knew that I wasn't helping them. I wasn't contributing musically to them, but he just had a heart for me. And I learned so much from him just watching him lead worship, because his whole attitude was, you could tell it was like, and I think he even said it, but it was like, "I'm going to worship the Lord. If you guys want to come along with me, come on," you know?
That's a great way to
But it was kind of like,
yeah.
whether you do or not, this is what I'm going to do. And so I just watch him, and it ended up where, even when they moved to that big building they're in now, I'd be up there, and it was like it didn't matter. At that time, that place was always full, and he didn't lead worship like that. It wasn't like, he would sing these simple songs like "Change My Heart" and songs that he wrote and other people's songs, but it was like so many times I'd look over and see him with his eyes closed and tears coming down his face, and I was just really, I'm so grateful to this day that I just got to be invited into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little bit of that Vineyard thing, caught not taught.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were just around it, and it got on you.
But it was such a blessing that I was invited. You know, like I shouldn't have been his first choice or fifth choice or 10th choice. You know, it was just nice that I was brought along like that.
I knew that we were going to do this podcast, and Heather and I were talking about it the other day. Heather's my wife. And she and I remembered the first time that we encountered you. You wouldn't have known. It was many years ago. It would have been in the 90s. We were in high school in Kentucky, and we went to this youth camp called Summer in the Sun.
You went to that?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you led worship there. And at this point, Heather and I really didn't know what the Vineyard was, right? We didn't really know. There wasn't even we weren't a part of the Vineyard or whatever. And you led worship, and I remember you had your band and you led worship, and I remember you guys did some songs that I'd never really heard, but the power of God came in the room. Like I wouldn't have had language for it at that time because we were a part of kind of like a Church of Christ tradition that really wouldn't have had language for that sort of experience with the Spirit.
Yeah.
But I remember telling Heather when we were there, I don't know what it is about this guy and I don't know what he's doing, but it's like touching our hearts, you know? But it was whatever you had been brought up in, whatever you had maybe been learning from Eddie, whatever you'd been given permission to be, whatever Chris had done in making a platform for you. You brought it all the way over to Kentucky and you're just doing your thing, right? And it was blowing our hearts up.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Isn't it weird? Isn't that weird? No, it's such a weird story.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Well, I remember we got fired. I mean, not fired, but we did the first year. They invited us to come do it because this guy, Louis Wimber, did you know? Louis? Well, Louis invited us. And he had gotten this record I did with Kevin Prosch called Soul Motion. And he liked the music, but it wasn't a worship record. So Louis was like the one who really got me into thinking about being a worship leader. Because he calls my wife, or tries to call me. My wife answers the phone and says, I got this record from your husband, and I want him to come lead worship for this youth thing in Kentucky. And she's like, he doesn't lead worship. Because at the time I didn't. I just played guitar with Eddie.
No way.
Yeah. And then he said, well, I think he's supposed to. And she goes, well, I don't know if he'd be able to do it. I mean, it was like in a month, 2 months away or something. And he goes, well, I got $1,500 for him. She goes, okay, he's a worship leader.
And we're on our way.
And then she's like, you learn to lead worship. I don't know if it was whatever it was, but, and so we did the first year, and the board of Summer in the Sun told Louis, we don't want him back because it was too weird. And
you guys, it was amazing.
Well, I don't know if you were there the first year. Maybe it wasn't so amazing. I don't know, but it was just not what they usually would have. So the next year they had the singer of Petra do tracks, and all the kids complained so much about that they invited us back, and then we did like 4 more years or something.
Yeah, and I don't know which year that I was there when you guys were there, but I distinctly remember you guys playing, I think it's that David Ruth song, We Will Dance.
Oh, yeah.
Bro, like that's not even a song that I would have ever connected with as a high school boy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, what high school boy's going to dance on the street? Well, maybe on the streets that are golden, but not now.
That's right, right? Yeah. But I just remember it touched my heart. Oh. And I was like, okay, this is something new, and I've never seen this before. Yeah.
Was Raymond with me?
I think Raymond was with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was a couple of years where he didn't go, but...
That's too good.
There's another guy I brought with me one time. His name's Dickie Ochoa, but he changed his name later to Richard Swift. Have you heard of Richard Swift?
No.
He just passed away, sadly, alcohol. But he's a great singer-songwriter as he got older. But he was a Christian young kid that, anyways, he ended up killing himself, drinking to death. But he was in the Shins. He was the keyboard player, and then he was in the Black Keys. He played bass for the Black Keys, and he produced all these records like Nathaniel Ratcliffe records, and did really a lot of cool music. And he just fell away from the Lord, got really into drugs and alcohol. But anyways, he I don't know if he was there when he did one of those too, and he played keys.
Yeah.
Well,
okay, so even that story right there, it's really interesting, and it's something that I've sort of picked up in a couple of stories you've told, and maybe something that I've noticed in your life from afar, is that you have this really cool ability to walk in two worlds, kind of like the church worship world, and then also the maybe general market rock and roll world. And it seems like you have lots of friends in all these different places. Can you talk about that for a little bit? What is that?
I don't know what that is. I mean, God has put people in my life. I think my love and my desire is that they'd be so filled up with the love of Jesus that would just become every bit of their life as I want that to be every bit of mine. Like I have a lot of friends that grew up in the church that go out and play in the world, but they leave their faith in a sense. They don't talk about it, or they don't even sing about it anymore. And I just love when people can go out in the world and boldly sing about Christ. To me, that's brave. That's being like, if you want to be cool and be rebellious, everyone else is singing about everything else, but sing about Jesus. Talk about like edgy, know. Like when I see Mavis Staples in front of the president or in front of anybody in the world, and she's always singing about Jesus, and she's so filled up with the joy of the Lord that nobody can deny it.
Yeah.
People's lives get shaken when they're around her because it's so authentic and real.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad when I have friends that have known that joy so much, but for some reason they're nervous or afraid to sing about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, just,
It's the true rock and roll. That's what I hear you saying. Yeah.
I think so.
Maybe that's the spot we're in right now.
Who's the coolest that's ever lived? Jesus.
Yeah.
Who's the one that's, done the most damage in a good way? You know what I mean? Like, who's the real rebel?
That's right.
It's Jesus. He's the one. He's the one that, he's the one whose name is so powerful that it's offensive. You know what I mean? Way more offensive than the Sex Pistols ever thought they were, or whatever,
Yeah. Chris, you're preaching.
I'm sorry.
Bro, this is good. Come on with it.
Well, it just, you and me both, we have a lot of friends that have slowly, and I've felt it in myself. I know when I feel my heart grow hard.
Yeah.
And I know when the world is telling me I'm supposed to be a certain way or this way to be more accepted or whatever. And I don't want to go with the culture. I want to be counterculture, I know that the Bible says that I'll be persecuted for my faith. And so if I don't experience that persecution, where am I in my faith? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Jesus says it right up front in Matthew 5, right?
I don't know.
I'd
like to go, Matthew 5 and quote it, but I can't.
It's like right at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, right?
Yeah, preach it.
That's it.
Yeah, okay, good. I know
that's right. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, I guess I have another question, in this sort of like space, because you played in all of these rock bands, you have led a lot of worship, and you've written songs that have touched the church. And one of the things I so appreciate about you is that you have your own voice. And I mean that like in your singing voice, but I also mean it like in the trueness of your spirit. I feel like when you play music, I'm not getting a cover band or a cover artist. I feel like I'm getting, like, this is Chris Lizotte. Nobody else could bring this but Chris Lizotte, right? So I'm wondering, how did you find your true voice? Or how did you find that thing that you do?
I don't know. I think you just stumble upon it. That sounds kind of easy answer, but I don't think it's something I've like consciously sought out to find or something. It's just more of, I'm a product of my environment, and I'm just trying to keep my environment healthy for me.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to walk a daily walk. I'm trying to like draw near to him so he'll draw near to me. All these things that I've been taught, I really want to activate. I really want to do it. And I find myself hating the things that I do and all the things that we all struggle with. But I also keep just putting one foot in front of the other and just
Yeah.
heading towards the light, as much as I can.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping as I read my Bible or pray and fellowship with my friends and be around people that are a good influence into me. And I've had so many people in my life that have just been so selfless with me as a person, just as a friend, just like loved me with no conditions. And so I want to do that too, Anyway, so maybe that's all part of finding my voice. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely part of it. I know that being accepted, like really, really accepted, does tend to create the kind of safe space that people need to be there, or even come to terms with their truest self. And, as a human being, but then also as an artist and even as a singer, like you actually sometimes need people to like really care for you in order for that thing to emerge.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually deeply connected. Hey, you just said a moment ago, you said you've had so many people, like friends, be so selfless and care for you. Like, who are some of those people, and how have they cared for you through your life? If you don't mind sharing, because sometimes I think these stories are so important for other people to hear.
Well, there's a few big ones, like Eddie was definitely one.
Yeah.
Kevin Prosch was one.
Yeah.
When we did that Soul Motion record, he said, I feel like the Lord wants me to lay down my guitar for a year and play keyboards for you and teach you about worship. And I'm like, at that point, he had already written So Come and Banner Over Me and some of these, and he was leading worship at the Anaheim Vineyard. He still continued to do that, but he just, for a year, he didn't go travel and do itinerant kind of stuff. He was on staff at Anaheim, but he would go play with me. And at that time, I had done just my second record, which me and Raymond and Kevin and this guy Icky and Paul Martin did. And we were playing like juvenile detention hall or one night, and then playing some little church in Bakersfield another night. Just not glory gigs or whatever, but for us at the time, we were just having fun being friends together and playing together. And Kevin was going and doing these things with us, and it was interesting. And I know you have a history with Kevin too. And at the time, this was before a lot of mess in his life and stuff.
Yeah.
And he freaked me out a lot because he would see in the spirit so much, and he'd see good, but he'd also see really dark, demonic stuff. And so he would just point up at, like, we were in this one juvenile detention hall, and I would just get the creeps because he would say, I'd look at his face and something was wrong, and I'd go, what's the matter? And he goes, there's demons all over this place. There's lust, there's like some other ones, and he'd just name them all, and I'd go, oh gosh, take me out of here. And we're locked in there. But
so he gave a year just to.
Yeah, I mean, probably more than a year. He took me to Europe for the first time with our band. We went to Switzerland, and my band did all the street ministry, and then his band went to Larry Myers and Tony and Sue, who you might know, the bass player. And anyway, so this was his band back then. They would do this conference in Bern, and then we would do like the street stuff, and we'd go to different towns and do street stuff. And so Kevin would come play Hammond with me, and then at night go there. And I remember one night, this conference, there's 3,000 people in this called the Fest Hall. So where Bon Jovi played, like it was a big place. And back then they'd have pretty big conferences in Switzerland and Europe with Vineyard stuff, and maybe they still do, I don't know. But I remember this heroin addict that we saw on the street with a needle sticking out of his arm and blood coming down his arm and laying in against a wall. I remembered him, and we prayed. I didn't, someone else prayed for him, and I was watching it. And later that night, there was posters all over the town telling everyone to go to this conference, this fest hall. Like they wanted lost people to go. It was a Christian conference, but they wanted people from that's why we did the street ministry stuff. And I remember standing in the back of the fest hall during worship, and there's Kevin up there singing So Come. And that guy walked in the back door, and he was hammered. I mean, stumbling in.
Yes.
He falls flat on his face and then gets up and goes, "What's happening to me? What's happening?" He's like, started like screaming, and all these guys went around him, and they started saying, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And he goes, "What is this? What is this?" And one guy was with me, spoke Swiss German, and I said, "Tell me what he's saying." And the one guy was telling him, "It's Jesus." And he goes, "I want Jesus." And it was like just everyone else, like during the song, it was such a holy moment. Everyone was like on their knees, and it was just,
this is going
and
on.
this guy walks in and falls right on his face from the presence of the Lord. And I had never seen anything like that. And then it breaks my heart because I, spent so much time with him for some years after that with Kevin. And to this day, he's my favorite singer-songwriter ever.
Yeah.
But also probably the most anointed guy I've ever been around.
Yeah.
And
probably late 90s. I don't know when. It was late 90s. I accidentally went to this Kevin Prosch meeting. I had no idea who he was. I had no clue what was going to happen. It was in Nashville. I'm just a young guy. I thought, well, this is a worship night. I'll go. I didn't know who Kevin was, and he went in, and Kevin started by playing a song that seemed like most other people in the room knew. Like, just kind of started that song, and he had a band, like a little 5-piece band or something. And then about like 5 or 6 minutes into this song that people seemed to know, the music never stopped, but the song began to change, and all of a sudden we were playing a song that no one knew and singing words that it took me because I was kind of slow, because I just wasn't quick on the uptake here. But I eventually came to realize, he's making this up. Like, this is spontaneous. And all of a sudden, the whole room is singing these spontaneous choruses with Kevin. And this went on for over an hour. Like, the song never stopped, but it kept changing. And of course, and you know what I'm talking about. Kept changing and kept changing and kept changing. And the words kept coming, and the room went with it. And all I could feel was, the room... I can't even hardly describe it, other than it felt heavy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it felt heavy. And by the end, after an hour or so, Chris, I'm laying in the floor because it's just so heavy now. And it feels like whatever heaven is,
right.
It feels like it's in this room with us, right?
Yeah.
And I got up from that moment. I thought, I have no idea what I've just been a part of, but I'm ruined. Like, this is it. Like, whatever we just did, this is the point, And it changed me as a worshiper, worship leader, songwriter forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I became like, I don't know. I just became so hungry for someone who could take risks in worship. And it felt like worship was a conversation, It's like,
right.
It felt like we were singing something, and then God was singing something.
Yeah.
And then we would sing something, and then God would sing something. It was beautiful.
And like what I was talking about before about our friends that go out into the world, like you remember the Peppercorns, he was doing that thing. And I remember we went to England and Scotland, and I opened for them there. So it was all theaters and like secular places or whatever, but that kind of thing was what he was doing. In the midst of it, he was in a tough spot personally, but his heart started at, I want to take this into the world. And there was no apologies. He was like, this is what I do. This is who I worship, and this is what we do. But, people were coming, a word of mouth or whatever was happening. People were coming, filling these places. And that's like, when I think about what you were asking about, like straddling this sacred and secular, whatever.
Yes.
I just want people to like, let's be sacred people in the world, not of the world, but be in the world that we are,
Yeah.
And we don't need to change from, I lead worship and I get paid to lead worship at this church on Sundays, but this is what I really do. This is my real love. Well, just do them both, but change, that anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's a great word. People need to hear it. You know what's interesting, Chris? I recorded another podcast this morning with a friend, and she was saying the exact same things. It's interesting to me now. Maybe this is what this day is about in some ways. She's just one of these people who lives with one foot in one world. She's like in high-end fashion, and she's a pastor.
Oh.
Yeah, and she was literally just telling me 3 hours ago, why can't we just be the same person in both places?
Well, wouldn't that be great if God is just pulling us into that?
I think he is.
Because I understand when people don't want to do that because it's not easy. It's uncomfortable and it's fearful. But wouldn't that be interesting if maybe her saying that and maybe us talking about it is maybe that's God saying this is where it's going.
I think so.
Which would be so cool.
Yeah, and it's giving people permission.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Hey, can I talk to you about songs for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is kind of a weird question, but kind of gets to the heart at it for me. Where do songs come from? Where do your songs come from?
It's just from my life, like yours come from your life. It's just like, that's all we can authentically write from is from our life and our own story. And I've tried to write like congregational worship songs that I think would be good for the church or something, but I'm not there, and it's hard for me. Not that I don't think you could do it and pull it off. We were talking about, who were we talking about was it this morning? Oh yeah, I was at a Meet Church meeting with my pastor and a friend of mine who's a producer, and we were just talking, someone asked me about Matt Redman, and I don't know him very well. I've known him a little bit, and I just said, I just think he's an amazing person. He's like, he writes these songs that connect with the church so well, but so many of them are about suffering. And they connect because we all suffer, And so his songs come off as so genuine, even though they're can be the big pop hits of the church.
That's right.
Which is good for him, good for the church.
Yeah, both.
But anyways, I don't know.
Well, people aren't writing songs like that from just no place.
Right.
It's coming from a place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hear you say that you write songs from your life. Does that mean that you're writing all the time, or does that mean it's like seasonal and there's like moments?
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that work?
Well, I think I'm probably, I want to be inspired, so I wait for inspiration. And sometimes inspiration comes when you actually take a step. And it's been a while since I've taken a step,
Yeah.
But when I do, I tend to look inside and kind of wanting to write from an authentic place if I can. But I haven't written much in a while, so I don't know why.
Yeah. It is funny how that works. But I have come to realize over the last few years, even the forest has winter, right?
Mm.
And it's important.
Yeah.
So Like winter's not bad.
Yeah, I don't beat myself up about it.
Yeah.
I don't. I feel like I have so many other things that I can do to become better that I feel like are probably maybe more important than writing a song anyway. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's enough great songs out there and enough people still writing great songs that I don't feel like anyone needs my songs.
Yeah. Yeah, but maybe they do.
I'm grateful if
maybe the world does though.
Well, I'm grateful if God uses them and they bless people, but if I never wrote another song, God speaks anyway.
Amen.
So,
I hear you. Yeah. So where do you get inspiration?
Sadly, from sorrow, mostly. It seems like, yeah. I mean, it seems like the last 10 years, it's just been like, I went through a really tough time of panic and anxiety, like a lot of people do, that I'm finding that out. The more I've talked about it, the more I realize the good thing about it is I found I'm not alone, and I've had to go on medication and had really bad panic attacks. And so songs can be like psalms, in that way. And I don't like it. I like it. I like those songs because it does help people to connect and they can relate. But I wish I could write more songs of joy and more praise. I love, I went to a Kirk Franklin concert and it was like one of the best things I've ever been to.
It's just
high praise. And part of me is, I feel like such a dork because I'm a tall white guy. And so part of me is there wanting to jump up and down with people. But I'm like, if I jump up and down, everyone's going to turn and look at this tall, goofy guy jumping up and down. But I feel it in my spirit, and I wish I could do that. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So I listen to it.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay. Slightly different question. What's a perfect day?
A perfect day. Having a good day. I just had lunch with my oldest son.
Yeah.
And
what's his name?
Dana. And he lives in Costa Mesa. And it was really nice because I kind of blew it. The other night, we went and got a Christmas tree with my two other boys and their girlfriends. And they just were like, let's go get a tree. And I didn't think about calling my son who doesn't live with us. And he texted one of the boys' girlfriends and said, thanks for the invite, or something like that. And he told me that today at lunch, and I just felt so terrible. But I said, you know what, Dana, they got to go to Home Depot and get a tree, and but they're not at Sabatino's eating spicy sausage and a salad.
Who's the winner now?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he goes, you're right.
You're right.
So it was, I think you would probably say the same thing.
Yeah.
Our best times are with our kids and our wife and our families,
Yeah. Yeah, my son is here with me this week.
I know. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's a sweet boy.
He is a sweet boy.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that and you mentioned your son. I've been very, very tender about my sons and my children this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
I have 4. And my oldest, who's with me, River, he's 18. And I have just felt very tender about him. When my friend Jared Boyd, he called me in the summer and he said, Adam, how are you doing? I said, I'm okay. He's like, and Jared says, well, how's your family? How are your children? Tell me about and Jared's a really good man. And I said, well, they're really good. And I told him about my kids and went through the list. And I said, yeah, River's 17 and da-da-da. And he says, oh, he's 17. When does he turn 18? And I said, in December. Turns 18 next week. And he says, oh my goodness, Adam. He goes, he could be out of your house this year. And when he said that, it landed on me, not in a heavy negative way, but in a heavy serious way. And so all the issues of parenting and fatherhood have surfaced, but in a really way, it's made me, I've always been tender and a bit gushy over my kids, but it's made me real tender towards him. He's a musician and I don't know. I just want him around this stuff,
Yeah.
you know?
I told him yesterday that you should have told your dad let me drum on this. Quit getting these hot shots. And
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Nepotism's good. Yeah. But I will say this. Monday, because we were tracking for this song with Andy Squires. We're tracking one of his songs. Monday I wasn't here. I was flying here. I'd flown River out early. And Monday, they were tracking with Aaron Sterling, who's one of River's drumming heroes.
Oh,
so he got to be
nice.
in the studio with them, and he was like eating that up.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. When it comes to Perfect Day, I'm with you. Like, if I could be with my kids, if there's food around, if there's a bottle of wine, if my wife could be there,
Yeah.
game over.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
My youngest son is moving out next week, 10 days. And it's tough.
Yeah.
He's our youngest, you know. We have three boys. And he's moving to Arizona to go to Harley motorcycle fix-it school.
Yeah.
Like a trade school.
Yeah.
Which we're really happy for him, and he loves it. He builds bikes and stuff. But it's weird when your youngest moves out.
Yeah, that's got to be a different emotion, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, it won't be long, though, and there'll be all these new people coming to your house. Little guys, probably.
Well, we're trying to say, well, wait a minute, but, put the ring on the finger, but
Yeah, that's right.
But then let's get going.
That's right. Next season of life.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Chris, a couple quick hitters.
Okay.
Gibson or Martin?
I have 2 Gibsons, yeah.
Okay. Answered that easy. Surfing or motorcycles?
I have both.
I was trying to pin you down there.
Sorry.
In-N-Out or Five Guys?
In-N-Out. No brainer.
Southern California, Northern California?
Southern. I have only known Southern, but I like Central.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The Central Coast.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. Hey, Chris, last question. And this is a new question for season 2, because we try to have a little harmony or a little melody going through all of these episodes. Could you tell me what you're dreaming about these days? Or what's the dream of your heart right now?
I want to finish well. And I do dream about heaven. And I kind of freaks me out a little bit because I don't want it to be like, oh, remember that podcast Chris did? And he was talking about heaven, then he died in a car wreck.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
I'm just kidding.
That's how morbid I am.
I'm laughing with you.
Okay.
But yeah, so I do think about that. I mean, there's just so much sadness and so much division in the world. And it makes me long for peace, And there's so many, as a pastor of a church, there's just tragic stories in so many people's lives. And thankfully, my story has been not so tragic, but I still deal with some depression and stuff. And so it makes me long for, I'm good with when all that's, when this is all behind us.
Yeah. When everything's made new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Amen. I can feel that. Especially these days. I get that.
Mm.
Yeah. Man, Chris, thank you for coming on this podcast.
Thanks for inviting me.
Dude, thanks for sharing your story. And thanks for being vulnerable. That's really, really great. And appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, could you do maybe one more thing?
Sure.
If it'd be cool. If it's cool with you, would you just pray a prayer for all of our artists and musicians who are listening to this podcast? Even if it was just a little simple prayer of blessing or whatever's in your head and heart. Would that be cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. Lord Jesus, have mercy on us all. Lord, we surrender our lives to you again. Would you remind us of the day of our salvation? And would you become our first love again, our passion, our very breath. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thanks, Chris. Fist bump. Boom.
Casey Corum here, producer of the Ferment podcast. Thank you for listening to episode 1 of season 2. We've got a lot of great things in store for you this year. We can't wait to share them with you. Here's a couple things you can do to help us. Rate and review us on iTunes. This helps more people find us. Also remember to subscribe to our Sing Together playlist on Spotify. This is where you'll find all of our monthly singles. All right, thanks for helping us get the word out. Peace.